To configure the floodlights on a Niō Guardian system, we'll start from the Nio and Settings tab at the bottom of the screen, and then select the desired Nio from the list on the left. Scroll down to Reveal and select the Settings button. Then tap on Lights to reveal the floodlight settings. The Niō Guardian has an upper and lower set of floodlights, which can be enabled independently. The top lights project outward to cover the most distance, while the bottom lights are angled slightly downward. We'll toggle both options on for full coverage by the floodlights. Next, using the slider, we can adjust the brightness of the floodlights when selected for night illumination. We suggest using 70% or less if you plan to increase the floodlights to maximum output upon detection of an intruder. Here, we'll set the value around 70%. Finally, we can adjust the floodlight's color temperature between 3 and 5000 Kelvin, should we wish to match the LED's color output to existing lighting on the property. Here, we'll set the value to 5000 Kelvin, which is closer to daylight and works best for security lighting. With the floodlights configured, we can now tap Settings and then Back to return to the Nio's main menu. To configure the sound and microphone settings on a Niō Guardian system, scroll down to Reveal and select the Settings button. Here, we find the slider for adjusting the speaker volume when a user manually plays a pre-programmed voice-down message or sounds an alarm. Live push-to-talk audio will always be output at 100% volume, and the volume for automated voice-down messages is configured within the scheduled behaviors, which is covered in its own section. Let's set the speaker volume to around 75%. Next, we have the option to enable or disable the Nio's built-in microphone. If laws require, or your preference is to not record or hear what is occurring near the Nio device, you can choose to mute the microphone. When muted, the selector color is green. We are deciding to keep the microphone enabled because we plan to use the push-to-talk function with people on premises, and want to hear the voice-down messages and alarm sounds in the event recordings. With the sound settings configured, we can now tap Back to return to the Nio's main menu. To configure the camera on a Niō Guardian system, scroll down to Reveal and select the Settings button. Then tap on Camera. First, we set the video quality as either HD or 4K. HD is 1080p video or 2 megapixel resolution, and 4K is 8 megapixel resolution, which requires 4 times more internet bandwidth. Use the 4K setting if you have reliable internet upload speeds of 5 megabits per second or more at the install location. We'll choose HD by tapping on the toggle switch, which turns from gray to white when selected. The Nio has integrated infrared nighttime vision, meaning it can see and record intruders at night, even in the absence of visible light. If the area will be dark at night, then we can enable night vision by tapping the toggle switch to turn it green. If the property is well lit at night, or you plan to use the Nio floodlights, there is no reason to enable night vision. Since we'll be using Nio's floodlights, we'll keep night vision disabled. The Nio camera has the option to use HDR or high dynamic range image processing for more detailed recordings under certain conditions. If the camera faces an area with very high light contrast, such as a very sunny area next to a very shady area, or displays glare or silhouettes, then enabling HDR processing can reveal details that might otherwise be lost. Under normal conditions, HDR is not needed, and can result in a less desirable result than normal video processing. We suggest testing both options during daylight hours to make your own assessment. Since we are happy with our image quality without HDR, we will leave it turned off with the toggle switch being gray. The connection type options tell the Nio how much bandwidth is available for transmitting video data, with choices for 4G or DSL. 4G means the Nio is connected to the internet via LTE or 5G cellular modem. DSL means the Nio is connected via a land-based internet service, like cable or fiber. This setting changes the frame rate used to produce the daily recap time-lapse videos, which effectively reduces the data usage for the cellular service. Since we are connected by cable service, we'll choose the DSL setting. Finally, Nio supports RTSP streaming to on-site video storage or third-party monitoring systems, which can be enabled here. Since we are not currently installing the Nio in this type of configuration, we want to keep the setting disabled. With all the camera settings now configured, we can tap Settings and then Back to return to the Nio's main menu. In this section, we will define the areas on our property where we want to detect intrusions by people and/or vehicles. Just as importantly, we are also informing the Nio system of areas we do not want to trigger detections, like public sidewalks, roadways, adjacent properties, trees, etc. To configure the event detection settings on a Niō Guardian system, scroll down to reveal and select the Settings button. Then tap on Event Detection. First, we'll tap on People Area of Interest to determine where we want the system to detect a person on our property. By tapping and swiping across the grid, we color the boxes red, and thus activating that area of the camera view for detection. Areas which remain gray will not trigger event detection. Once configured, we need to tap Save Area of Interest in the upper right-hand corner to save our settings. The same applies to the Vehicle Area of Interest. Here you select the area where vehicles will be entering the camera view for fast, immediate detection, and not necessarily the areas right under the camera. If you do not want or need detection of people or vehicles, just leave the area of interest completely gray, and the system will not detect people or vehicles on that Nio. Finally, we can adjust the sensitivity of the PIR or passive infrared sensor, which is the motion sensor used to activate the floodlights. We recommend leaving this setting at 50% for most applications, but it can be adjusted to increase or decrease the floodlight's response to motion when needed. With event detection now configured, we can tap Settings and then Back to return to the Nio's main menu. The Nio camera sends images of events to the cloud for AI analysis and classification. To maximize the camera detection distance, Nio automatically zooms into areas where it detects pixel movement. This significantly extends how far the Nio can detect a person or vehicle, which is very useful in large open areas. If the Niō Guardian is positioned in a very confined or narrow space, the extended detection range is not required and should be turned off. To configure the event detection settings on a Niō Guardian system, scroll down to reveal and select the Settings button. Then, under Detection and Connectivity, we find the toggle switch for extended detection range. For our application, we want to ensure the feature is enabled, so we tap on the switch to turn it on in the green position. With the extended detection range now configured, we can tap Back to return to the Nio's main menu. A weekly schedule of 7 days by 24 hours is used to set the times for the Nio's floodlights to turn on and turn off. In this example, we want the floodlights to come on at 7 p.m. and to turn off at 6 a.m. for all 7 days of the week. To do so, scroll down to reveal and select the Settings button. Then tap the Schedule menu item, and a 7-day by 24-hour schedule appears. Tap anywhere on the schedule near 7 p.m. and select Lights On. Then tap to select all 7 days of the week. Tap the time to fine-tune to exactly 7 o'clock p.m. and press the Lights On button to confirm. Next, we tap on the schedule near 6 a.m. and select Lights Off. Again, we tap to choose all 7 days of the week and fine-tune the time to precisely 6 o'clock a.m. Note that we must tap Set Schedule in the upper right-hand corner of the screen before we exit, or we will lose our settings. Upon doing so, the Apply Schedule utility appears, allowing us to apply this lighting schedule to other Nio units on our property by selecting them from the list. With the floodlights now scheduled, we can tap back to return to the Nio's main menu. Now, we will determine when the system is armed to detect people and/or vehicles, and how we want the system to behave upon a positive detection. In this example, we will start detection at close of business, which is 8 p.m. Monday through Friday. And we want the system to respond with a soft greeting that lets people know the business is closed and visitors are being video monitored. Later in the evening, at 10:30 p.m., no one should be on the property, so we plan to face intruders with strong, unpredictable deterrence actions. Finally, we need detection and deterrence to be off at 5:30 a.m. before employees return to work. To schedule our detection and deterrence behaviors on a Niō Guardian system, scroll down to reveal and select the Settings button. Then tap the Schedule menu item, and our 7-day schedule appears. To schedule detection and our soft greeting to commence at close of business, we click on the schedule near 8 p.m. and choose Select Deterrence Behavior. Next, we choose an appropriate Niō behavior from the list that allows a simple voice-down message to be played upon detection, so we select Basic Deterrence. Now we can tap to select Monday through Friday, and tap the time to fine-tune it to exactly 8 o'clock p.m. Saturday and Sunday are not being selected because the business is closed on the weekend, and we plan to program Saturday and Sunday separately. To configure this behavior's response to intrusions, we can tap Behavior Parameters to expand the options. We are only concerned with audible deterrence of people on this property, so Object Detected is set to Person. If set to Person or Vehicle, deterrence will be triggered for either. Now we can select the initial voice-down message to be broadcast as soon as a person is detected by selecting First Voice Down. A list of voice messages and sounds appears, which can be auditioned by pressing the blue play buttons on the right.
This is security. You were trespassing on private property.
We can tap to select an individual message, or preferably a playlist of many messages, which will be randomly selected by the Nio to avoid predictability. In this example, we want a voice-down playlist, and choose multiple voice messages appropriate for the situation. To finish, we select Done in the upper right-hand side of the screen. Here, we can determine the volume for the first voice-down message. We'll set it to about 75%. Since this is a softer response, we decided to only respond with the first voice-down message. Otherwise, we could add a second message, red and blue strobes, and an alarm sound in the event that the visitor persisted. We then save the settings and return to our schedule by pressing Deter with Basic Deterrence at the bottom of the window. Now, we need to schedule when we want to unarm or turn off detection and deterrence functions. Tap the calendar near 5:30 a.m. on Monday and select Stop Deterrence. Now, we select the days of the week and fine-tune the time as was done previously. In our case, we are choosing Monday through Friday at 5:30 a.m. to ensure the system is unarmed during work mornings. We plan to keep the system armed all day Saturday and Sunday with different behaviors during daylight hours, which move to more aggressive behaviors during weekend nights. Note that we must tap Set Schedule in the upper right-hand corner of the screen before we exit, or we will lose our settings. Upon doing so, the Apply Schedule utility appears, allowing us to apply this deterrence schedule to other Nio units on our property by selecting them from the list. With the deterrence behaviors now scheduled, we can tap back to return to the Nio's main menu. All 7 days of the week, we want to schedule a more aggressive deterrence behavior, starting at 10:30 p.m., when no one should be on the property. To do so, scroll down to reveal and select the Settings button. Then tap the Schedule menu item, and our 7-day schedule appears. We tap on the schedule near 10:30 p.m. and choose Select Deterrence Behavior. Then select Shock and Awe Loitering. This will cause Nio's response behavior to automatically change from the soft voice down message we set up previously to the more aggressive shock and awe behavior at the specified time. Now we can tap to select all 7 nights, Monday through Friday, and tap the time to fine-tune it to exactly 10:30 p.m. Tap Behavior Parameters here to reveal the configuration options for this response. The immediate responses to intrusion are red and blue flashing strobes and a siren. By tapping here, we can specify how long this response continues before a voice down message is played. We'll set this to 20 seconds. Then we'll set the siren volume at 100%. To configure the voice down messages, we can tap here and then select Voice Down Playlist. A list of available voice messages and sounds appears, which can be auditioned by pressing the blue play buttons on the right. Tap the name from one of the sounds to add a checkmark, which adds it to our random voice down playlist. Then press Done. Next, we'll set the voice down volume to 100% and leave the time to idle at 30 seconds. We close and save the settings by selecting Deter with Shock and Awe Loitering in the lower blue box. Note that we must tap Set Schedule in the upper right-hand corner of the screen before we exit, or we will lose our settings. Upon doing so, the Apply Schedule utility appears, allowing us to apply this deterrence schedule to other Nio units on our property by selecting them from the list. With the deterrence behaviors now scheduled, we can tap back to return to the Nio's main menu. Many businesses are closed on weekends when round-the-clock deterrence may be desired. In our example, the business is closed all day Saturday and Sunday when the property should not have visitors on the premises. We are choosing to deter loitering with multiple voice down messages during the day starting at 8 a.m. and continue to use the shock and awe behavior configured in the previous section starting at 10:30 p.m. Note that there will be no stop deterrence scheduled on Saturday or Sunday mornings because we want 24-hour detection, deterrence, and event recordings during closed hours. To schedule our weekend detection and deterrence behaviors, scroll down to reveal and select the Settings button. Then tap the Schedule menu item and our 7-day schedule appears. Now tap the schedule near 8 a.m. for Saturday and choose Select Deterrence Behavior and select Basic Deterrence. We now tap to select Saturday and Sunday and tap to fine-tune the time to exactly 8 o'clock a.m. Next, tap on Behavior Parameters here to reveal the configuration options for this response. We are only concerned with audible deterrence of people on this property, so Object Detected is set to Person. If set to person or vehicle, deterrence will be triggered for either. Now we can select the initial voice down message to be broadcast as soon as a person is detected by selecting First Voice Down. A list of voice messages and sounds appears, which can be auditioned by pressing the blue play buttons on the right. We can tap to select an individual message or preferably a playlist of many messages, which will be randomly selected by the Nio to avoid predictability. In this example, we want a voice down playlist and choose multiple voice messages appropriate for the situation. To finish, we select Done in the upper right-hand side of the screen. Using the slider, we'll set the volume for the first voice down message to around 75%. In the event that the first voice down message does not scare off potential intruders, we can tap Second Voice Down to configure a secondary set of voice down messages. We again select Voice Down Playlist and choose 8 appropriate messages. Once finished with the selection, we tap Done. Next, we set the volume for the second voice down message to 100%. By scrolling down, we have access to additional settings, such as choosing the time between the first and second voice down messages. We could also add red and blue strobes and an alarm sound in the event the intruder persisted. We then close and save the settings by tapping Deter with basic deterrence in the lower blue box. Note that we must then tap Set Schedule in the upper right-hand corner of the screen before we exit, or we will lose our settings. Upon doing so, the Apply Schedule utility appears, allowing us to apply this deterrence schedule to other Nio units on our property by selecting them from the list. With the deterrence behaviors now scheduled, we can tap back to return to the Nio's main menu. To delete scheduled behaviors of floodlights or deterrence features for a Nio system, scroll down to reveal and select the Settings button. Then tap the Schedule menu item, and our 7-day schedule appears. Touch any of the scheduled items: lights on, lights off, deter with behavior, or stop deterrence. Then simply tap on the top menu item with the small trash can icon, and confirm by pressing Yes. Repeat this for each of the items on the schedule you wish to delete. Note that we must then tap Set Schedule in the upper right-hand corner of the screen before we exit, or we will lose our changes. The Apply Schedule utility appears, allowing you to apply the schedule changes to other Nio units by selecting them from the list. With the schedule revised, we can tap back to return to the Nio's main menu.